Sure.
I've got to walk out.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 9th, 2020 meeting of the Delaware County Board of Commissioners. Would you please join me in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jeff Benton, the new president of the board this year, so this is my inaugural session, so hopefully I don't make too much of a mess of it. To my right is our vice president, Gary Merrill, and Mike Cromer, administrator. To my left is Barb Lewis, our fellow commissioner, and Sarah DeNova is going to run the meeting this morning, so we can start.
Resolution number 20-29, in the matter of approving the electronic record of the proceedings from regular meeting held January 6, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-29. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Okay, we do have one piece of other business. Oh, aye. Aye. Okay, we do have a piece of other business to introduce here.
We do. Resolution number 20-30, in the matter of setting date and time and place for viewing and public hearing for consideration of the villas at Maple Creek.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-30. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Hi, or aye. Hi, hi. Aye.
We have no public comment this morning. That brings us
You
to
threw me off. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
item number 3, resolution number 20-31. In the matter of approving purchase orders, then and now certificates and payments of warrants in batch number CMAPR 0108 and memo transfers in batch numbers MTAPR 0108.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-31. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-32. In the matter of approving travel expense requests.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-32. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
And I am going to recuse myself.
Can I get an answer to the vote?
Oh, sorry. You want to, okay, go ahead.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye. Now I can leave. Okay.
Yes, you can. Resolution number 20-33, in the matter of amending resolution number 19-1265, setting the date, time, and place for viewing and public hearing for the consideration of a petition from the Lake of the Woods Water Company requesting dedication of a 3.136 acre segment of Duncan's Glen Drive as public right-of-way.
So moved.
Second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-33. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis has recused herself.
Okay, can invite Commissioner Lewis back in.
Just for the benefit of the audience, Commissioner Lewis lives in that area, and it's appropriate that she recuse herself, so that's why we went through that, just so you know.
Item number 6 has been amended, and we've provided you with the new resolution with the added petitioners.
Yep.
So I'll read that as the record. Resolution number 20-34, in the matter of allowing the applications to amend the petition of the Lawson 4 number 25 drainage improvement petition.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-34. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-35, in the matter of setting date, time, and place for viewing a public hearing for consideration of the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 drainage improvement petition filed by Gary and Linda Graham and others.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-35. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-36, in the matter of accepting sanitary improvements for the courtyards at the ravines.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion,
Board of Commissioners, Tiffany Mag, Director of Environmental Services. This is a condo development with 55 units and a clubhouse, and these sewers have been installed to meet all of our requirements. It's located just south of Lewis Center Road and east of 23.
okay, vote.
Vote on motion 20-36. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Item number 9 has been pulled from our agenda this morning. Since it's not close to 10, we can move on to reports or executive session.
We do have need for executive session.
Okay.
And it's not close to 10.
Yeah, it's not close to time. Why don't we go ahead and do executive session?
Yeah.
Resolution number 20-37, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of compensation of a public employee or public official for pending or imminent litigation for collective bargaining.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-37. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
All right. With that, we are now in executive session. We hope to return by 10. Should be able to.
Okay. Yes.
Back into session.
Yeah, thank you.
Adjourn out of executive session.
Yeah, this ought to be
Yep.
interesting. Ready?
Okay.
Resolution number 20-38, in the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-38. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
We do have another item of other business. A amendment was just walked in. So resolution number 20-39, in the matter of allowing an application to amend the petition for the watershed Watson Ford number 295, watershed drainage improvement petition.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-39. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
And that brings us to the start of our hearing.
Okay. Yeah, let's open the hearing.
Resolution number 20-40, public hearing for consideration of the Watson Ford watershed drainage improvement petition.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-40. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-41, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence, a suspension of Rule 3, speaker registration, Rule 4, limitations, and Rule 7, public comment procedures from the rules governing the public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-41. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye. Okay, the hearing is now open. I will go through an outline of what we're going to do today, so everybody's clear on the process. This is the first hearing on the Watson Ford number 25 drainage improvement petition. I'd like to welcome everyone to this first hearing. There is a sign-in sheet circulating. We would ask that you please sign it. We will hear a report from the county engineer and Soil and Water Conservation District, the folks who did the review work. Take questions from our board to that report, and then we will open it for speaking. Those speaking, first we'll hear from all those in favor of the petition. Then we will hear from all those opposed to the petition. During the testimony, you will be asked to take an oath. One additional item is those speaking for or against the petition must either be an owner as defined in section 6131.01 of the revised code, or an attorney speaking on behalf of an owner. We'll continue back and forth if new information comes up or additional people wish to speak. Take more questions from the board. After listening to the testimony and the report of the engineer, the board will decide whether to grant the prayer petition or dismiss the petition. The board considers the following in their decision: whether the board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare, and that the board also finds it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvement will be less than the benefit. If the board grants the prayer petition, the county engineer will proceed with preparation of plans, reports, and individual schedules of assessments for the project. When those plans are complete, a final hearing will be set. Notification of the hearing will be given to landowners, and the board would then consider the project at that point. So with that, we will turn it over to Brett Bacon from Soil and Water, and he will read the report into the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. I would just like to announce before I start reading the report, the report that has been handed out to the attendees is going to slightly differ from what I'm going to read. The only difference is the report that I'm reading into the record as the official report reflects the amendments that the Commissioners accepted today. So everything else is the same. So.
And those amendments were just additional petitioners
Correct.
being accepted
Yes.
into the petition.
Yes. First hearing report, Watson Ford Watershed Drainage Petition per ORC 6131, January 9th, 2020. This report has been prepared for the preliminary hearing on a drainage improvement petition filed by Subjahit and Jennifer Eldada and others on August 2nd, 2019. The original petition has been signed by representatives of 9 of the 82 parcels in the watershed. The general location and course of the requested improvements are quoted from the petition as follows. In Delaware County, Liberty Township, within the Watson Ford number 25 watershed, and generally following but not limited to the course and termini of the existing improvements. The following is the nature of the work petitioned as quoted from the petition. To generally improve the drainage, both surface and subsurface, to a good and sufficient outlet by replacing, repairing, or altering the existing improvements as required and or creating new surface and subsurface drainage mains or laterals as requested by this petition. The petition has been amended based on requests filed by Eric Saney, 3510 Clarkshaw Road, Jason and Barbara Wells, 1892 Ford Road, Jay and Cheryl Shoemaker, 2080 Ford Road, Mark Hope, 1991 Ford Road, Sharon and Bruce Blackston, 2097 Ford Road, Daniel Malone, 2167 Ford Road, Connor and Catherine Lee, 3150 Beanalla Road, Frederick and Karen Grassel, 3196 Beanalla Road, and Jack and Sue Veal, 3266 Beanalla Road. All of the amendment requests have been to join the petition for the purpose of creating a good and sufficient outlet for the respective properties. The Commissioners accepted the Saney Amendment on September 5th, 2019, the Wells Amendment on September 16th, 2019, the Shoemaker, Hope, and Blackston Amendments on December 16th, 2019, and the Malone, Lee, Grassel, and Veal Amendments on January 9th, 2020. I will also interject at this point that you also just accepted an additional amendment as well. Petition process. This petition has been submitted according to Section 6131 of the Ohio Revised Code, ORC, which authorizes the Board of Commissioners to act on behalf of benefited property owners to make drainage improvements. If the Board of Commissioners decides to proceed with the project, the costs related to the improvements and the development of plans, reports, and schedules are assessed to the landowners in the watershed according to the benefit received to their watershed acreage. These special assessments will be added to the property taxes for each property and can be spread over a maximum of a 15-year period. Property owners may also choose to pay their assessment in a lump sum payment prior to placement on their property taxes. Additionally, the improvements will be placed on the Delaware County Drainage Maintenance Program in perpetuity per ORC Section 6137, and the annual maintenance assessment will appear on property tax statements as a special assessment in the same manner as the construction assessments. These annual maintenance assessments are generally in the range of 2 to 3% of the construction assessment. It should be noted that property owners are only assessed for those improvements that are located downstream from their properties. No property is assessed for improvements located upstream. The public agencies that own rights-of-way for public roads and other public lands are also assessed for both construction and maintenance costs in the same manner as private property owners. The decision to approve a petition project is a three-step process. First, a viewing of the proposed improvement is conducted for the Commissioners to familiarize themselves with the watershed and general conditions. The Commissioners conducted the viewing for this project by drone video on October 14th, 2019. Next, a preliminary hearing is held to consider the initial feasibility of the proposal. It is this preliminary first hearing that is before us today. If this petition is approved, a final hearing will be conducted to further consider this petition. At that time, final details such as engineering plans and specifications, cost estimates, and a proposed schedule of assessments will be known. Existing conditions. The Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District and Delaware County Engineers Office have made the following observations of the watershed using on-site evaluation and a review of available historic records, aerial photography, topographic mapping, and soils mapping. The Watson Ford number 25 watershed is approximately 521 acres. The predominant land use within the watershed is agricultural, with rural residential also comprising a large portion of the area. There are also areas of woods and road rights of way. Improvements in the watershed have been constructed, improved, or modified using the ORC 6131 process in 1873, 1874, 1885, 1886, 1900, and 1915. These improvements consisted of open ditch construction and subsurface drain installation. The drainage system does not appear to be functioning at or near optimum capacity due to a lack of comprehensive maintenance and the generally deteriorated condition of the infrastructure. The lack of uniform grading has led to significant ponding in many areas of the watershed. The subsurface drain system appears to have significant areas of structural failure as observed by sporadic blowouts along its course. These conditions are indicators of an overburdened and aged drainage infrastructure. While the existing drainage system still provides some degree of drainage benefit, it does not appear to function as a good and sufficient outlet. Estimate of cost, factors favorable, unfavorable, benefit versus cost. ORC 6131 requires the county engineer to state in a report factors favorable and unfavorable to a proposed project, estimate the cost of the project, and state an opinion as to whether the benefits of the project exceed the cost. The following information is presented for your consideration. Construction estimate. The project would begin at or near the Sawmill Parkway right-of-way as its downstream terminus and extend upstream to meet the request of the parcels signing the petition. The primary items of work along the entire length would include surface drain shaping and grading, the replacement of existing subsurface drains, the installation of new subsurface drains, the installation of private drive culverts, brush and vegetation removal, and seeding and mulching of disturbed areas. Additionally, road culverts and associated roadway drainage will be evaluated as part of this project. Any improvements necessary to the road rights of way would be direct assessed to Delaware County and/or Liberty Township. If the project proceeds to a final hearing, portions of the watershed may be further divided into sections to better define the areas of work and the associated costs and benefits. This level of detail is not determined for the preliminary hearing and is only undertaken if the petition moves forward to a second or final hearing. The cost estimate as presented below reflects the entire requested project area. Construction, $361,830. Drainage maintenance, ORC 6137, first year startup, 5% of the construction estimate, $18,091.50. Project administration, survey and engineering, $25,000. Total project estimate, $404,921.50. Notes. It is important to understand that the above estimates are preliminary and made in the absence of a current detailed topographic survey of the project area. Should the project fail to be approved at the final hearing, the benefiting landowners, as defined by ORC 6131, may still be responsible for the cost of project administration, survey, and engineering design. Assessments. If the project moves forward to the second hearing, the Ohio Revised Code instructs the county engineer to calculate the assessments to individual property owners based on the benefits received from the improvements for the various properties in the watershed. ORC 6131 states that, quote, uplands that have been removed from their natural state by deforestation, cultivation, artificial drainage, urban development, or other man-made causes shall be considered as benefited by an improvement required to dispose of the accelerated flow of water from the uplands. Benefits are further defined by the ORC as, quote, elimination or reduction of damage from flood, removal of water conditions that jeopardize public health, safety, or welfare, and increased value of land resulting from the improvement. Individual parcel assessments are not calculated for the preliminary hearing and are only calculated if the petition moves forward to a second or final hearing. Factors favorable, unfavorable. Factors favorable to the improvement. Improved surface and subsurface drainage in the watershed. Improved outlet for subsurface drainage components of household sewage treatment systems and for residential drainage systems. Reduction of future deterioration of surface and subsurface drainage infrastructure. Annual inspections, maintenance, and protection of the improvement in perpetuity. Factors unfavorable to the improvement. Temporary land use during construction. Cost of construction and maintenance may be a burden to some landowners. Removal of existing trees and brush in improvement area. Benefits versus cost. Assessments for property within the watershed are calculated based on the benefits derived. A publication by the Ohio State University Extension titled Returns to Farm Drainage details several studies conducted by Ohio State researchers on the effects of drainage on crop yields. The studies show that fields with good drainage will produce higher yields than fields that have poor drainage. A recently completed 25-year study showed that subsurface drainage increased corn yields by 24% to 39% and increased soybean yields by 13% to 46%. The same study also analyzed the return on investment for installing subsurface drainage in a field. It found that for corn, $4 is returned for every $1 invested, and for soybeans, $3 is returned for every $1 invested. To state it generally, the benefits of drainage will equal the increased yield multiplied by the market price. The increased value or benefit for residential properties is much more subjective and difficult to quantify. For residential properties, the lack of an adequate drainage outlet can negatively impact the condition of household sewage treatment systems, potentially limiting the value of the home for resale. Should the existing system fail, the cost to perform repairs or an alternate sewage treatment system can range from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. It would also be reasonable to consider the cost of environmental degradation due to residential sewage treatment systems that may not be functioning properly. Other benefits that are commonly perceived as a result of drainage improvements focus on quality of life and positive neighborhood perception. Communities that have planned and maintained stormwater drainage infrastructures generally have higher resale values than those communities that are known to have a history of drainage problems or flooding. Conclusions. Based on all of the information gathered and generated for this project, I believe this project is technically feasible and would adequately serve the project area's drainage needs. However, the testimony brought to the board by the landowners as to whether the benefits of this project exceed the cost should be given significant consideration in the decision to move forward with this project. Should the current petition be approved to proceed to a final hearing, the petition bond will be returned and detailed plans, specifications, estimated costs, and a schedule of assessments would be prepared. Additionally, a benefit versus cost analysis will also be performed to further determine the feasibility of advancing this proposed project.
Okay, I do have a question.
Yes.
On your third page, and I'm sure there's an explanation just over my head, when you calculate the cost, it says project administrative survey and engineering, 15% of construction estimate. 15% of 361 is not 25,000.
You're correct. That's a copy and paste error.
I'm sorry?
Copy and paste error.
Okay,
Typically, we estimate project administration costs at 15% of our estimate. When we have larger cost estimates such as this, that's just too much. That's not a reflective figure of
So
what
the
we...
25 is an accurate number?
That's correct,
Just
yes.
Make sure
yes.
we're all on the same page.
Thank you for asking that question.
Good question. Okay, other questions? I had a question as well. This is a big project, covering a lot of acres, 500-plus acres. There's a lot of different ditches involved in this. Is this, we've seen some in the past where some of the laterals are optional. You don't have to do all the laterals in a project like this. Is that the case at this?
We have not presented the project in that way at this stage. That would be something I would anticipate if we would move to a final hearing, that you would have that option of if this, then this.
So some of the spurs or laterals might not
We would
have to be included in the...
Correct. We would break that down. This is a lot of times we can look at I'll call it the off-the-shelf information, the county-generated topography, soils mapping, and determine where those breaks are, and it makes it easier for us to, I'll say, break out those costs or define those areas at this stage. This is a flatter area. That type of information is not as telling to us in this case, and therefore it would take a field survey level of investigation to actually break those down and identify where those areas might be.
What would, if you did this project, what would it do to the existing field tiles in the farm fields?
We would examine those if the condition of those tile were such that we felt comfortable taking them on maintenance. We could take them as is. Otherwise, our standard practice would be to replace them in where they lay.
Because of the age, I'm guessing that's
Correct.
not
Yeah.
a likely...
Age and condition. Most of them are old, have not had any kind of comprehensive maintenance. It's fixing a blowout here or there, or replacing a section that's gone bad, but not a comprehensive maintenance over the entire watershed.
What What, if any, impact has the addition of Sawmill Parkway done to this watershed? I mean, Sawmill Parkway's been there a few years now.
Right. To the best of my knowledge, the drainage is conducted through the parkway. I guess I would defer to the landowner's testimony as to what the impact, either, they're out there every day, you know, we're not.
Okay, okay.
But the drainage was part of the, you know, obviously, and
The design of Sawmill
if
Parkway.
Brett would want to speak to that, the Sawmill Parkway designs incorporated the drainage that was passing through the parkway corridor.
Okay. Any other questions for Brett or the engineer?
No.
Okay. All right, we will open it up then. Thank you, Brett. We will open it up to, first, we'll hear from all those in favor of the petition who want to speak. You don't have to speak. Go ahead. Look, got a volunteer.
He's got them on the computer, but I didn't know if you wanted some copies as well.
We don't have them in our package.
We don't have.
Mrs. Dada provided me her pictures. I have them on my computer, so I'm just
Okay.
going to.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, I will swear you in before you start your testimony. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, if you could state your name and your address for the record, that would be
Jennifer
appreciated.
Dada, and I'm at 3124 Bean Aller Road.
Okay, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Jennifer Dada, and it's 3124 Bean Aller Road.
Okay. And if you could, point out the number on the map.
Parcel 10, right?
Number 10.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, thanks. So we bought this property in June of 2009, I believe we moved in, so we've been there 10 years. And I can say on the seller's disclosures, they mentioned that there was the way they worded it was a small amount of water that would pass through the back of the property after an exceptionally heavy rain, and it never came close to the house, and it passed through in a matter of hours. So we went through that first summer and never had any real rain, but starting in the fall, we saw what she referred to as a small amount of water. We essentially get a river of water running through our backyard every time there's a moderately heavy rain. It doesn't really have to be exceptionally heavy. So I have 10 years worth of pictures, several storms each year, probably each spring and each fall. But I tried to get a few representative here. So this is the back, looking out towards the back corner of our property. And this will last for, at times, up to a week. And then after that, we can't get back there to mow or do any kind of work. And I liked this picture because you can see to the right of it, it's not a lot of water sitting there, but it never used to hit our leach field. That's where our leach field is. And it's starting to collect standing water over our leach field, and I'm told that that's a pretty bad situation. And my problem there, so this represents that it actually does come close to the house. That's our deck there. We collect water pretty close to the house. Again, that's our leach field, and it runs across our leach field now. And my problem with the leach field collecting water is if it fails, our options for secondary sites are the back and the side, which collect lots and lots of water. So I'm not sure we even have a viable option if our leach field fails. Again, this is the back corner. This is a few years ago. And I think on that one, so in that back corner where it collects quite a bit, we had the drain tile apparently runs across that corner and then curves toward the back once it leaves our property, and we have a blowout right in that corner. I couldn't get a good picture of how the property has sunk there, but that's where apparently we had a guy put a camera in and he couldn't get it even close to that. He's assuming there's a blowout, but so this is the other corner of the property. That's our common access drive, and that gets completely covered by water. Again, that's the common access drive. Well, pretty much the same thing, but these are probably all from different years. Okay, so on this picture, you can see that the water is just about hitting the second from the top of the fence post. It did not used to do that, so my impression, anecdotally, I can tell you that I feel like it's gotten a lot worse over the past several years. Again, this is a different year, much sunnier, but I feel like that's a pretty dramatic picture, but this is a regular occurrence for us. And this is just last spring. We had a guy come out from, okay, so I should back up a little bit. We never used to get, so that's over our leach field now. This is last spring, and it's even worse over the leach field. Let me just get through the pictures. So it's getting closer and closer to the house. We had some attempt at improving the drainage around the house there. It wasn't very successful, but we have to do what we can do. Oh.
Oh, gosh.
Does the video work? Escape. And this is not even as bad as it's gotten. I just happened to catch the guy driving through.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Ducks.
And so just, right here, I'm not sure if you can see, the fence takes a little jog right there, a little right angle towards the right of the picture. Our utilities boxes are right there. They get completely submerged. And at one point in the past, it was before we got there, but neighbors all told me about it. Some neighbors to the east of us, and I'm not being critical because everybody wants to protect their property, built up just beyond our property, built up with lots of soil to block the water running through their property. And it created such a dangerous situation with the electrical boxes that AEP came out and shut the boxes off to our house and the house behind us.
That is your neighbor's house,
That's our
right?
neighbor's house, yes,
Okay.
because I'm,
Oh, your house, okay.
hi. So I thought, I kind of like that picture. It's pretty, but it's doesn't help us sleep well at night. But just a few things. So we moved in 2009 and had our first experiences with the flooding. So we did have some people come out and give us recommendations and things that we might be able to do. We did have a retention pond dug in the front of our property, and the excavator was really good. He was able to create some channels from some low-lying areas that drain even our neighbor's house into our pond. This is the front property, into our pond. So it did improve drainage in front of the house a bit, but it does nothing for the back. We've lost lots of trees. We've, until very recently, never had water in the basement, but that's only because we're really diligent. When we get a heavy rain, either my husband or I were up all night. We have gone through at least one sump pump a year. There was one year where we went through 3 because they run continually in these rains. And the problem is, it can't go anywhere because this is what we're running it to. You know, we drain our sump pump, but there's nowhere, we're surrounded by water and there's nowhere to run the water to. So we sit there and watch it it's a circuit basically. It runs in our house, we pump it out, the sump runs continually. When we burn one out, we always have an extra one ready to go because this happens to us all the time. I can even do it now. I know how to change the sump pump now. We have gotten to the point where we have to drop in a little utility pump to supplement what the sump pump can do and run the hose out the window. We have 400 feet of hose that it runs through, but still we have nowhere to run it. It's basically a losing proposition. We just hope that we can keep up with it until the rain stops and it starts to run through a little bit. We just these past few years started to get water in the basement, not because of the sump pump, because like I said, we've been really diligent, but seepage through the walls because water is starting to stand against our property where it never did before. So we had a few different companies, Everdry, Basement Authority, places like that that do water in basements. We had a few of them come out this past year, and we did a couple $1,000s worth of work to improve the drainage towards the front of our house, towards the pond. But they said what we would need to do to improve the overall situation, number one, it would cost $15,000 to $20,000. But number two, it would be completely ineffective because we have nowhere to lead the water to with this situation. So we're kind of stuck. That's my problem. We are perfectly happy to do the work, but now we have nowhere to send the water, so it's useless to even put any more money into it. And this is a personal issue for me, in addition to the leach field, which that situation kind of terrifies me. But if we have a failed leach field, again, like I said, we have nowhere to put another one that would be better than this one. We have radon in our house, and we have a radon mitigation system, but that requires the sump pit to be sealed because it exhausts the fumes, the gases from the sump pit out of the house. But we can't keep the sump pit sealed because we have to get in there so frequently, several times a year. And we've replaced the sealed cover. We've had to have extra holes put in it. So I worry about that as well. And now that's my problem. That's not everybody else's problem. If they don't have radon, they don't have to deal with that. But our radon mitigation system is not as effective as it should be because we have to deal with that on a regular basis as well. I think that's all I have. Actually, I have a big packet of information here. My husband was going to come and talk with you. This was his, but I think I've covered his main points.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think Commissioner Murrow has a question.
Ms. Smith, correct? I have a question. You said the AP cut off the electricity. Was that a one-time occurrence?
Yeah, as far as I know, that was before we moved in.
Before you moved in,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we just were told about it. Now, yeah, and like I said, I'm not criticizing. We're told, you can do what you need to do on your own property to deal with the situation. And we've tried not to do too much raising areas of the property because we don't want to affect people upstream from us, because that's exactly what happens. But I see that popping up all around us, and again, not criticizing, because I'm getting, I think, to the point where we might have to do some of that as well, at the very least to protect my leach field. Might have to start raising some areas as well. But yeah, as far as I know, that was just the one time. And I wonder if I called AEP each time we had a storm, if they would see the same dangerous situation that they saw then, because it does get submerged every single time. Yeah.
How much
still an issue.
land do you have?
I think 3.75 acres, 3 3/4
Okay.
acres, I think.
Okay, almost
Yeah.
4 acres. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Other speakers in favor? Go ahead. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could state your name and
Okay.
address and identify the
I'm Christy
parcel.
Peterson. I live at 3130 Bean Aller. I'm actually Jennifer's neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't have as much to add as her because we just bought the house in October, but to see the photos is kind of enough for me. We have 3 little kids.
Which parcel is yours, just to make sure we understand?
I'm not exactly sure the parcel, but the white. It's 11, thank you.
11.
Parcel 11.
11.
We have 6 acres, an acre's a driveway, so we probably have 5 in the back. But we bought it, for our 3 kids and our dogs and hopefully farm animals. And the water that gathers, like she said, by the electrical outlets scares me. So I don't know if that could electrocute the dogs or anybody, but I haven't seen the water in person, but it's pretty significant, and on the driveway as well, like she said. So, I have the same photos she has. I have copies. I don't know if you want them. But it's just worrisome because we don't know how many times a year it happens at this point, and I've heard it happens frequently. and we obviously want to be able to use the yard. We also have put in like 30 trees already, and they're right against the fence where the water problem is. And Jennifer's correct, all the utility boxes, the electrical is sitting right in the pond.
Have you had water in your basement?
We have not moved in yet because we're doing we're doing a couple months of renovating. And there has not been a water gathering since October because we haven't had as much rain as last year. But like I said, you know, we didn't really buy the house to have, you know, an involuntary pond in the front yard, so. And we, like her, I mean, I would pay money to fix just our property if we could, but from what I've heard from everybody, that's not going to do anything, because if the properties around you are still flooding, it's going to impact your land.
Thank
That's all
you.
I have to say. Thanks.
All right, other folks, gentlemen? Oop. We'll get you.
Hi, my name is Laura Montgomery. I live at 1850 Ford Road, and I'm having a hard time distinguishing. I think I'm probably 43. I'm in that upper right-hand corner.
Okay.
We've built our house in 1986, so I can speak and tell you that it has changed over the years. There was always some water issue. It's flat clay soil. We were lucky. Our contractor actually said, you know, based on what the soil was,
Oh,
I'd
I'm sorry.
recommend.
Sorry, I forgot to swear you in.
Forgot
to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Okay. He recommended we put in basically double the leach field that was required, and thank God we did it, because I think that saved us. We've never had an issue, but I can tell you over the years what I've watched happen is where we used to have a few low spots. We're on a flag lot, so we're the third deepest house back, which we thought was a good thing. But over the years, what I've seen happen, and I can tell you since Sawmill Parkway went in, it definitely got worse, is as things developed, because we were one of the first new houses on our road, I've watched as the tiles were disrupted, the water then started to back up onto our property, and now our leach field partially is submerged. We actually have mallard ducks that come back every year now and nest on our property. So I'm, you know, and I can see that the tile's working because it does flow back, but unfortunately that floods our neighbors. But it is a significant issue. You can't be in our backyard in the springtime or early summer because of the mosquitoes, because of water standing. The thing that I am concerned with, because as I look at this plan, and I am fully in support of doing this work, but improving the ditch along Ford Road does absolutely nothing for many of the homes that are, almost all of these are built on flag lots. And I think that was part of the issue, and quite frankly, improving the ditch at the front of our property doesn't help us. And so I just want to make sure that whatever fix happens addresses all of the property owners and actually does fix some of the issues. Yeah.
So you say along the side, kind of the part that runs
Yeah.
parallel to Sawmill? Is that what you
Yes,
mean?
yeah.
You
So-
want to
and
make
it's-
sure that is taken care of?
Yeah, because there was something that occurred, and it probably was just slightly to the north, and it was right prior to Sawmill Parkway going in. They assessed our property. There was some kind of a ditch, because at the other end of Ford Road, where the curve is, those houses, as they built, they were actually submerged and they looked like they were on an island, and it was flooding up over the road. And so they did assess our property, and supposedly that was going to help us. Did absolutely nothing for us, but did seem to help at the other end of the road. And again, I'm supportive of, it's just like we're making patches here. I just want to make sure. as different folks came around and over the years would be campaigning for county commissioner and for other elected offices, I brought this up every time. And every time someone would say, oh, I'll look into that, you know, that's terrible, nothing's ever happened. And I really thank Jennifer for getting this petition together because, quite frankly, I never took the time to do anything about it, but I do think it's a significant issue. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Brett, clarify the point about the backyards and the ditch.
Brett, question for you.
You read my lips, didn't you? Ms. Montgomery's comment about fixing the ditch won't solve the problem if they're on the flag lot back away from the ditch. And you have a comment on that?
Well, I guess I'll start with the project that she's referencing is the Basiger petition project, which would have been constructed in, I'm going to tax my memory here, 2007, 2008-ish, I think. And at I'll say the northern boundary of the Watson Ford watershed line, as we have it drawn right now, would reflect the boundary for the Basiger project that was established at that time by the Board of Commissioners that was sitting at that moment. There's a couple different possibilities for addressing that. As we would currently have the boundary drawn, I'll say the end of the flag portion of her lot would be in the Basiger watershed. We would certainly, as we, I'll say we have better tools now to assess those watersheds than we did even 10 years ago. Better data to look at, better survey instruments. We can take a look at that watershed, and it may be that the Watson Ford line needs to be adjusted and improvements to the back part of her property could be included as part of this petition. If we determine that that line is indeed correct, then it may take a separate action, another ORC 6131 petition to address her concerns.
So to translate, ultimately it'll depend on whether the watershed line is and which way the water is flowing.
That's correct.
Then you can determine whether this will help or not.
Correct. And we would certainly, if the board approves us to move to a survey and engineering design, I'll say one of our survey staff's first contacts is going to be to those folks kind of on the periphery to meet with them and try to establish exactly where that line is.
Part of a property could be in one watershed, part of it could be in a different.
Absolutely. Happens quite frequently.
Now, the comment about the ditch is not really helping along Ford Road.
I think she's referring to the black and yellow line that I've drawn on there. As my disclaimer says there, that's we try to give you some representation of what a project center line might look like. Obviously, those are actually established by the survey and engineering design. I can completely understand what she's saying, though, that an improvement out along Ford Road isn't going to probably address her concerns on the back half of her property, and that may very well be because the water on the back half of her property flows to a different location, but all part of engineering and design.
Yeah.
But the cleaning out the ditches and so on is part of the solution for
Certainly
the watershed.
would most probably be a part.
Most probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we will continue. Other folks who want to speak in favor of the petition? I know this gentleman's been patiently waiting. Oh, looks like you're going to
Somebody else.
have to wait
beat
one
you.
more. Okay, I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
All right, if you could state your name and address and lot
I'm
number.
Dave Wolf. I do not live on Bean Hollow Road, but I am part owners of a family farm that we've had for 60 years. It's parcel number 53.
Okay.
All I can say about this is the drainage out there has progressively gotten worse over the years. We have definitely lost yield over time just because as the neighbors talk where they say it may take weeks to drain, sometimes on our parcel it's been months, depending on the year. There's a section that's just lost to farming because it sits, even in lighter rains, it'll sit in water and it could take 2 and 3 weeks just for that to drain, even if it's not had a rainy season. So, this petition would definitely be something that we would, be for, and, would definitely help our property and help farming yields for the future.
Do you know if you have tile in your fields now?
There's some, the ones that I've helped my dad fix over the years were smaller, so I've not come across any large blowouts, 4-inch, smaller.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Gentlemen?
There we go.
Hey, there.
Get up there.
All right, let me
Flash drive.
let me swear you in. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, if you could identify your name and address and parcel number.
My name is Dennis Moore. My parcel, just went away there.
Did you say Dennis?
Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S.
That's his first name, and his last name.
Last name is Moore.
Moore.
Moore. Thank you.
Gotcha. Do you know which parcel number you are on the map?
I'm parcel 32.
32, okay.
Work.
So you're on Bean Aller then?
Yes, I'm on 3349 Bean Aller Road.
Okay.
I originally started looking for a place to purchase in early 2012. I was looking for a piece of property, approximately 1 to 5 acres. I was living in Powell at the time. I work in the Polaris area and was also living in Powell and felt I wanted to stay in this area. So I started looking for a parcel of land, 1 to 5 acres, where I could park my boat, other items, et cetera. Started looking. I didn't find what I wanted, so I started looking for undeveloped land. Again, continued to look in this area. I looked at places along Bean Aller, Clark Shaw, Ford, Maynard. During that summer, as I was looking at properties, a number of places I looked at on Ford Road and Maynard, I found ponding that summer. But as I continued to look at Bean Aller and Clark Shaw properties, I did not find any evidence at the time of ponding. So I selected this property and purchased it in September of 2012. Struggling with your mouse situation here. Gotcha. All right, let's go back this way.
Oh,
So I started construction in November of 2012. This occurred January of 2013. This was my first event, and this is what I arrived to one afternoon. During the rest of the construction of the property, this occurred no less than 5 more times. In fact, at one point in time, construction had to stop because I was in the process of having AEP install the electric. And since it's underground, the ditch had been dug to run the cable through, and at that point in time, we had rain. The ditch filled up. AEP says, we're not putting our guys in danger while this situation occurs. So had to have it pumped out, wait until it drained. AEP could then come in, connect the.
Are we looking at the front of your property or the back of your property?
This is the front of the property. This is from the edge of Bean Aller, looking south. This is the most recent. This was May 28th of this year. As you know, we've had a lot of rain this year. There were multiple events in which there was ponding this year, and ponding is kind of a light word, I would say, at this point.
Between 2012 and this year, have you had consistent
Yes.
ponding, flooding, whatever you want?
Let's see here. Between 2012, when I first built it, and 2019, I average 8 times a year when this happens.
And that water will stand for what period of time?
It depends upon how heavy the ponding is, generally 3 to 10 days. And just in this section here that you see in the front yard, you'll have depths of water anywhere from 3 inches up to a foot. By my estimates, that's about 100 to 200,000 gallon of water sitting out there. As you can see, slightly there in the corner is the property owner next to me. It'll come into focus here shortly. They have substantial ponding as well in these events. And generally, because of the slow drainage, it will almost pond completely up to the edge of the road. This is the parcel next to me on the east, the Greens, and they clearly have significant issue as well. I don't believe they signed the petition. This is looking to the east to me, and as you can see, similar ponding here on the east side of the property. The landowners to the east of me, the Willets, you can see that further up in the right-hand corner of the screen. Because there was so much rain and so much ponding this year, this was not mowed. I wasn't able to mow until probably about mid-July. And looking back towards the Willets and the ponding and the edge of my property and into theirs, and then back to the south of me. This was pretty significant this year. Probably 2/3 of the property or more, and I own 9.5 acres, a little over 9.5 acres. So 2/3 of the property at this, in these pictures was underwater. And then, again, just looking back towards the Willets and the level of ponding in their yard. And again, just a little closer detail of how much water sits in the yard. A very different picture than what we saw earlier in October when there was the flyover of these properties. So you can see most of where the tall grass is and to the north, most of that is typically underwater in each of these events. This is the ditch in front of the property right at the road line. It typically fills up with debris, so slow drainage. This is the opposite side, and you can see where the air vent is for the drainage. But again, like I said, in most instances, when this is draining down, 3 to 10 days. This is what it looks like when there isn't all that water. a very different view of it. My biggest concerns are, you know, like some of the other landowners, it's the valuation of my property when I get ready to sell. Am I going to be facing a situation where those who are coming to look at the property see this or the prior picture? I'm also concerned because as others have talked about their leach fields, both of the properties immediately to the east of me and to the west have subsurface tile. And the greens, when their property gets flooded, it's pretty much covering the entire property. So I get concerned about theirs failing. So I haven't suffered some of the same costs as others. Obviously, the house sits on a kind of a hill, and that was by design. When I first bought the property and I met with Soil and Water Conservation District, I looked at the topographical maps, and that's why that site was chosen. The house actually was, at construction, we decided to put it 2 feet higher than normal and build up the soil around it. I did not finish the basement based upon, during construction, all of the ponding. So I don't suffer the same problems others might with a finished basement. The costs that I've incurred at this point is I've had to have the driveway done several times because of what it does to it. I have had several of my sump pumps fail because, as Jennifer Dada pointed out, the sump pump runs rather frequently. Mine doesn't run all the time, but 10 months out of the year, it's running. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Copy your pictures, if that's okay, so we have them for the
Yeah.
official record.
All right, anyone else want to speak in favor of the petition? Okay. I will swear you in if you'd raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. If you could identify yourself and your lot.
I'm Jay Shoemaker. I own the property, the map's not up there. I own the farm on 22,
Number 22, okay.
and I have a few photos.
So your address is Ford Road?
Yes.
Yeah, great, thank you. So you don't have a house there?
I don't, no. It's all farm field.
Good. You got some pictures you wanted to show us? Is that what-
Yeah,
we've
the
got-
photos are right here.
Oh, we've got them.
Right, so that first photo is the ponding that occurs to the immediate west of my property. All this water has to make it across my property or under my property. And so this flooding keeps our land very wet for a long period of time. Usually after heavy rain, we might see a month of just muddy conditions on our field. There's the second photo is the part of the drainage tile. You can see it's in disrepair. All that water attempts to make it down this particular pipe, and it's in very bad shape. And then there's also drainage coming from the south onto my property, and that tile is also in bad shape. And the ditches right there just fill with water and take a very long time to drain. And then in the final photo, I think it's hard to see, but actually on lot number 1 there, where the water enters the woods, there's considerable ponding there as well, and it's almost a swampy area in that spot. So I think a lot of it's just the condition of the Ford ditch and the subsurface drainage is just in disrepair.
Okay. Has it impacted your yields?
Yes, it does. And it's made it difficult to get the crops off the field and sometimes to get the crops on the field.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, others who want to speak anyone else who want to speak in favor of the petition? Okay. All right, if you could
My name's
raise your
Jamie Willett.
right hand, please. I'll swear
Okay.
you in.
Oh, I'm making something happen here, I'm sorry. Okay,
Okay. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Okay.
All right.
Name and parcel number, please.
Jamie Trey Willett, and we are number 56, 3263 Beanoller Road. We have 9.6 acres roughly over there. Dennis, thank you for showing, you got to see Lake Willett on his pictures because that's us to the east, right? Yeah, which all of our friends joke that we have Lake Willett out in front of us because that's how bad it is. We did know a little bit before we purchased that there was some water issues, so we were lucky that we did put in 3 sump pumps and, you know, took some precautions there. But just like everybody else has said, utility boxes are covered and it's just a pain and it's a worrisome, obviously, for future. I did want to thank Jen, too, for starting it, because just like Ms. Montgomery said, I also have thought, you know, we should really do something, and then I never do. So I didn't take a lot of pictures. I wasn't prepared for that today, so I apologize. But you did see what Dennis has, and I do have some pictures that I can show you, but I think that you guys are kind of getting the gist of what's going on with the water. I'm not going to show you anything different than what everybody else has. Really, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we are behind this too, and that we did want to support it, that we are also having the same issues, and that anything we can do to help move it along, we would like to do that.
Okay.
Okay, and I have some pictures that I'm going to send to Brett so he can get them to you. Is that okay, Brett? I would show them to them. Go ahead and show, okay. Yeah, here's some when we were looking at the property. We had decided to buy the property, and we went out to look at it to get excited about the build, and this is what we saw. So you can just, oh, that's my daughter. You can just flip through like that and get a chance to see all those pictures.
This is before you built?
As before, right. We had purchased, and then we went out and looked at it, and were surprised by that.
Did you say you did build?
We ended up building, yeah, and we may be luckier than some in that we knew, like I said, we did put in 3 sump pumps. We had a scary situation when we were building where the sump pump failed, and there was literally almost, the entire basement was almost all the way up to the ceiling with water. We ended up finding out that it was a nick in the drain tile, but obviously, if all that water wasn't on the land, it wouldn't have got, I mean, it was out of control. It was to the point where we were considering, you know, stopping everything and trying to figure out a way to get out of it. But when we realized that the construction workers had nicked the drain tile around the house, we figured out that was the issue. But obviously, if all that water isn't there, that wouldn't be an issue. We do have drain tile in the back. We've put the swale in, is that right, honey? The swale in the back. So we have done some things to try to make it better. But it just seems like, obviously, nothing works, I think. Same for everybody else. And then the only other pictures I have, we're not real proud of it, so we don't take a lot of pictures, but that's one of the front of our house now that we live there. We also have to redo the driveway quite a bit, as Dennis said, with his, because we've been denied deliveries before because they won't drive through the water, yeah. They just can't, it's hard to really see how deep it is, and so they'll, say they don't want to go through. And then I think that is it. Oh, here's a pretty one of you just see some of the water standing. That was for the rainbow.
Oh.
And then the other one, you saw that one. The only other one is that in the back you can see. I think I took that for the deer, so.
Oh, right.
But you get the idea.
See the water.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Copies of those.
Well, I sure will.
Yeah.
I'll get them to Brett and make
Yeah.
sure you guys see those. But I
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
I do have a question.
Yeah,
You, what,
sure.
You said you had 3 sump pumps. You mean you have 3 working at one time, or you've replaced it 3 times?
We have 3 working at one time. We did that as a precaution because, like I said, we're lucky enough to see before we built that there's obviously an issue. And after we had that whole drain tile and the flood in the basement, we weren't
And I'm
taking.
going to ask you the question that anybody who's opposed to it would ask, and that is, why would you buy the property if you know it's an issue?
We had bought the property and we went out to look at the property and saw the water. I think that's how it's happened.
After you bought it?
Right. I think it was, like how Dennis had said, it happened in the middle of construction, right? It was the first time. So, and, like I said, after that one flood, we considered trying to get out of it and, I mean, there are just some things you have to make decisions on when you're in the middle of it and money's an option, or not an option, rather, so.
Thank you.
Did you build your house up to knowing there was going to be an issue when you built your house?
I think we, did we, honey? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Others want to speak in favor? Good. You can go back to the microphone. I'll remind you, you're still sworn in.
Yes.
And if you want to identify yourself again, because we're recording it.
Dennis Moore, 3349 Beanoller. The subsurface drain tile that has been marked on here runs between the Willits property and mine. It is right on the border. There was a blowout there. That has been repaired, but I will tell you that when we reviewed it at that time, the drain tile was half full of silt. So quite frankly, to other comments about what subsurface drainage there is not doing its job, I would say I've seen firsthand that even though there's subsurface drainage there, it's not going to do what's needed.
Right, with the blockage. Okay, thank you. Others who want to speak in favor? Okay, sure. Again, remind you you're under oath, and if you could identify yourself for the recording.
Jennifer Dada at 3124 Beanoller Road. I just wanted to say, I would say about 3 years now, over the past 3 years, on several occasions, probably 5 or 6, we've had people come to our door, apparently interested in buying properties, houses in our area, just coming to question, trying to get an honest opinion, an honest evaluation of the water situation, because they have the feeling that their disclosures, like mine was, underplayed the situation, just really, definitely underplayed it, and they were concerned. So it's definitely affecting people's willingness to buy property in the area. Over the past few years, I've had several situations like
So let me
that.
ask you this, what do you tell them?
I'm honest. Tell them it can be pretty dramatic, and like Dennis said, it's at least 8 times a year, probably 4 storms in the spring and 4 storms in the fall, for sure. And people are generally looking at houses in the summer, and it looks great out there. It's nice, it's peaceful, but I do feel like it's only fair to let them know what's coming. I don't want to overplay it, I really don't, and I try not to alarm them too much, but I do feel like it's not fair to not give them the information they're asking for, because they feel like they're not getting it from the sellers, and I would probably want to protect myself as well if I were selling, but, and another, just a little detail, that corner between Christie and my house, where the fence is, where we have the blowout, that water gets to about 3 feet. My German Shepherd dogs walk out, they wade out, and then they swim, so it gets pretty deep back there, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Others who want to speak in favor? All right, now we will open it up, unless other questions, we will open it up for those who want to speak in opposition to the petition. I'll swear you in as well. All right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, if you could identify.
My name is
Property
Adam
owner.
White. I live at 3218 Beanoller Road. I've got a few farms, so I know the benefit of
In which parcel number, I'm sorry? is it
73, sorry.
Number 73?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know the benefit of tiling. But in this case, it will have kind of the opposite effect on my property. You'll have to use your imagination because I don't have pictures either, but If you look at 73, and you see how it wraps around real tight, around most of, well, half of my house. Now picture, in this picture right here, it didn't have my barn, two-story barn, it didn't have the basketball court, and it didn't have the pool connected to it. So it's even tighter than what you see in the picture right here.
What
What
picture?
picture is that?
What's that?
What picture?
Picture?
I said I don't have any pictures. I said if you look at the picture and you see how tight it is.
Oh, you mean
I'm-
the
I'm saying
map.
if you look, yeah, imagine to the right of it, the stuff I was just telling you about, it's even tighter than what it looks like on here. So, and I don't really have a drainage problem. I have additional tiling, laterals in the front and the back. So I don't really have a water problem. But like I said, I know the benefit of having tiling, and I feel bad for all these people with that part, but on my house, I'm getting the reverse effect. The destruction it's going to have, like I had to build a third of a mile driveway just now, the basketball court that came in, the concrete, and it's going to go through my privacy, which is the tree line that's on the side over here. If there's a way to move the proposed center line somehow, because I'm like the only guy in the room where it's the exact opposite. Everybody else needs help with that. Me, I'm like, just leave me out of it. I don't want you to do it. It's going to destroy, and I'll have no access to the front while they're doing all that work. And if you look, I don't see anybody, I couldn't really find anybody else where it went all the way, halfway around their house. So I'm obviously in the minority of what's going on here, but I only ask that they try and do something to mitigate the damage, because can I ask questions up here? Like the driveway, I have one on each side and in the back here, so when it gets destroyed, if this goes through this proposed area, who pays for that? How quickly does it get paid? Will my property be left, destroyed for, a year in the front, for something I just bought? I literally bought the house in August. Forgot to mention that, too. So those are my concerns with that.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't get the impression you're necessarily opposed to the project, you're opposed to how it's going to personally affect your property and your family. Is that an accurate statement?
Wait, sorry, say that again?
I don't get the impression you're necessarily opposed to the need for the project. You're concerned about how it will affect your property and your family.
Yes, that's correct. I'd spent a large amount of money, just buying it and making it the way I wanted it.
Okay, but Britt, could you comment about how we work with that issue?
Yeah, just kind of explain that process.
Yeah, if a project proceeds to construction, our goal, or, I pretty much universally, we return all properties to their pre-construction state. The lines that are represented on this map are not project center lines. They're to give a visual reference as to where the project might proceed. The actual center lines would be set by survey and engineering design, part of that phase of the project. And certainly if there are features that are existing on a property, things such as a basketball court or, absolutely houses, things like that, we're going to work around those. We're not going to just dig right through them and install the drainage. For one, we don't want the drainage infrastructure underneath that and to have to maintain that in perpetuity. And two, it just doesn't make sense from a cost-benefit standpoint. As far as driveways go, the standard practice is access is maintained to a property. If that means a contractor needs to steel plate a drive while it's open, our contractors certainly have a very good history of working with landowners as far as doing the work after they've left for the day and having it completed before they get back home. But access is made. We wouldn't cut off somebody's access to their property. We would make sure that a contractor, took reasonable measures to make sure they continued to have access to their property.
Okay. Very good, thanks, Brett.
Is that helpful?
Any other comments?
No, not really. That was a major question of mine, like I'm saying, repair it, because we all know that people can, with less integrity, could be like, well, they broke this too, and then, then it starts to run away with it, and I've got a lot of expensive things back there, and don't want to be told, oh, well, it didn't look like that before. Are you sure you really had one of those back there? We don't think so. And I'm like, yeah, I did. So anyway. That's all I had to say. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, others speaking in opposition. I'll swear you in. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
You could identify yourself and the
My
person.
name is Anthony DeRocco. My mom's Edna DeRocco, and she lives at 3000 Beanola Road.
Okay, what number is that? Lot number, parcel number?
She's on 75.
75, okay.
75, isn't it? Yeah, 75.
See in the
I
75.
don't see 75 on mine, I'm looking for it too.
There it is, I see it.
there.
Yep.
The middle.
Got it, see it now.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Looks obvious when you find it.
yeah?
Thank you.
Okay.
So I was in here on October 15, 2019, for another water issue in Delaware County. As of October 17, 2019, Ohio revised codes had been changed. And also, Scott Bacon has on a wet Delaware soil that he is going to put back all the historical waterways. So our problem here today is the historical waterways that he says he's putting back in would take care of all this problem. Because where going through, up through 75, the field behind my mom's to Ford Road, there was a historical waterway called the Dry Ditch that is no longer in the farm field. So with my neighbors, they're flooding out. The pictures you saw of the fence row being underwater, that comes across my mom's property, which my dad did not put any dirt back there. That is the natural swell that goes through the corner of my property. There is a drain pipe in the woods, but that water is supposed to go through the farm field according to Delaware County engineers. That has been closed up by a farmer. So we have that issue. Going to the west of our property, and where you saw that Federal Express go through that driveway, there was a house built in the middle of a field that it's not numbered. But he came to my mom's. My mom told me to talk to him. He built him a $100,000 home. Had a issue with water that flooded that field. He in return tells me he wants to take the neighbors and he wants to do his own drainage without involving the county and run it over to the back of my mom's property. So what he has done, we all denied it. So what he did is he put drain tile around his house and brought it over to the front of your house. Okay, but the attorney and the other house that's being built, you have a bulldozer company of CDK that does not go to grade sticks, has never put grade sticks in, and bulldozes where he feels like and alters waterways. So our issue is, you want to do a ditch petition, but we have waterways that have been closed up. Pipes that are underground are taking on thousands and thousands of gallons of surface water with one inlet. So from Clarkshaw all the way up through my mom's property, up through the property of Ford Road, by the county engineer, goes over to Sawmill Road Parkway, which is an open inlet for the water to go to the river. Those have been closed up. So putting a ditch petition together is crazy. Your road ditches are all full of crap. They're not cleaned out. And I thought, isn't that a county job to make sure they're clear? They're full of stuff. I understand my neighbors to the other side of Beanola Road. The pipes that are going under the road is a 4-inch pipe that is full of crap and won't go through. I mean, I've been through this situation once before. We solved it with the other homeowner, but if you want to get all this water moving where it's supposed to go, your open ditches, the ditches by the roads need to be cleared out, and this farmer behind us, behind my mom's house, needs to put his waterway back in. There is grants for this to be done. There's federal grants. There's federal emergency money for all of this, but it has to be taken by the right steps to have it done. Just go and throw in a ditch petition because this guy ran drain tiles over to someone's house, floods out their yard, floods out the neighbor's yard. I understand because that water cuts right through the corner of my mom's yard. I change her sump pump at least every 2 to 3 months because of one man clogging up a waterway. All he has to do, since he's a farmer, take his tractor with the disc and cut the swell back in. We did that on Burnt Pond Road and reopened the waterway. So our problem, my thing is for my mom to raise her taxes on all this property. One man's got this all shut off. The people across the street from Beanoller, the county needs to go clean out their ditches and clean out their pipes so the water can get across the road. And you're not talking of 500-600 gallons of water. You're talking thousands of gallons of water come across there. Because when it rains, you could take a rowboat and put it in front. I'm not good with names. You put it in the front of her house, get in it, and you will come all the way back into the corner of my mom's property, and you're going to get stuck because it can't go where it's supposed to go. So for someone pulling up saying, I want a ditch petition, why isn't the county doing their job? And because I've been told we cannot exceed the ditch, the road ditch. Okay, but on other situations, you've come all the way into my backyard to tell me things about the water. So that's where, at the last meeting, I brought up, we don't know the true story of everything that's going on, of the lies. There's historical maps. There are 5 different historical maps in Delaware County. Union County has the real one. Chicago has the real one. We have researched all this. When we did our property, where I live, we had 5 years of research into it. I've only got 2.5 months into my mom's right now, and we're going to keep researching this whole problem here, because spending taxing everybody $404,000, but that's his estimate. That's what he's estimating, which he can add another 15 to 25% to that. Now, where's that going to take the taxes? And all because certain blockages of the ways. I mean, how long would it take a man to go knock on his door and say, can you open this back up? Take your tractor, put your disc. But if Soil and Water looks on their historical maps, the right one, not the fake ones, he will see that there was a waterway there. Put it back in. It was not a continuously running every day. It was a dry ditch. And when it rained, everything went into it. It went up by my mom's, up to Ford Road, and over to the swell on Sawmill Roadway. The other reason I have issues with some of our neighbors is my mom Soil and Water came out, county engineer came out. In the front of the property closer to Beanoller, we had an issue with water. My mom spent $20,000 on an attorney. And my mom was told, you need to go talk to the homeowner and have a ditch, have a pipe put under his driveway. What's up with where we live now? We have to have PE so we can put a driveway in. How come he didn't have to have one? And we're still in Ohio codes. But for some reason, codes are getting changed as fast as we talk about these. Come to these commission meetings, they're changed. I don't understand why they're being changed, because it's, what for? they're Ohio codes, they're federal codes, and they're being changed to do a ditch petition. The other thing is,
We need to wrap it up. We need to wrap it up. We're running long. I don't know if you had any other points to make.
and my other question is, since you're there, how soon can I get the copy of the minutes?
Minutes.
Yeah, when you're, about this meeting.
Well, it's all available online.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I should clarify, this meeting is not verbatim recorded. It's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube as soon as the meeting's over and we turn everything off.
Okay. Others who want to speak in opposition? Anybody else who wants to speak in opposition? Okay, if you would, please. Okay, I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
Okay, great. If you could identify yourself and address and the parcel number.
Sharon Durfee. We live at 1964 Ford Road. I think it's lot 43.
43, is that what you said?
43.
Okay.
I know you're running late, but I have some things to say. I don't want to be rushed, just to let you know. I am very sympathetic to the problems that people are having. We live on Ford, and certainly the people off Bean Oler. But I think one thing should be noted, that the people that are here today are obviously for, or a lot of them, are for going forward with this project. 9 people signed the petition, but 80-some did not. Okay, so the people that signed the petition, I think, have very specific concerns about their property. And if you look at the map and who has discussed all of this, it's primarily Ford, all the way down, and Bean Oler, a strip there. The gentleman that just spoke brought up an excellent point, is that if there was a waterway for some of this drainage, we would not have a problem. If you look at road, that ditch and that drainage goes all the way down to the property next to us where there is a creek. The water flows down that ditch to the creek, which goes under the road, right into the farmland he was talking about. And you know what happens when it goes under the road? There's nowhere for it to go. It just flows into the farmland where he was discussing where the waterways should be. So I have to believe that some of the drainage issues, especially down Ford and the other side of the road, have to do with the lack of where the water can flow. The petitioner's letter that was sent to everybody in the watershed stated that the signature on the petition includes your property for potential upgrades if the project is approved. But I don't think, because that letter was sent out with no attachment from the engineers, I believe that most people in the watershed did not understand that even if they chose not to sign the petition and the project was approved, they would still be committed to all the costs associated and assessments associated with that project. and future maintenance. This is an enormous expense. People whose properties are not affected in any way, shape, or form by any changes being made have the right to say, why am I paying for all of this? I have no problem with drainage on my property, but now I'm being assessed thousands of dollars for this project to go forward and future maintenance. Some of the older residents, and the bigger the property, the more the assessment. Some of these older residents on multiple acres of land, this is going to be a real financial problem, especially those residents that are retired and have lived there for 20 or 30 years. Because we all know that our property taxes have gone up year after year after year, and then you get a letter and say, your property's worth $30,000 more than it was 2 years ago. We're going to tax you based on that. So to add that burden is very difficult on a lot of people. I just have to believe with all the engineering that we have today, the current engineering, to sit and talk about repairing 50 to 60-year-old drain tiles in an area where it used to be farmland and still is a good portion, but with all of the construction that's going on, you know that a lot of those drain tiles are antiquated, and we should maybe be considering other means to solve these problems. In the case of Ford Road and being older, I have to believe that the group of 5 homes on Being Euler or whatever it was, and our strip going down Ford Road, that could be addressed by the engineering department and help us solve those problems. And instead of taxing or adding an assessment to everybody in the entire watershed, that those people that are specifically involved or have problems, that they could pick up, work with neighbors, work with engineering to solve those problems. Instead, we're talking about, the 9 people that signed the petition and the people here that have justifiably have concerns. But we're talking 80-some landowners that are going to be paying for problems that, and I don't want to say property specific, but some of these landowners, some of the people that have these problems can resolve the problems either by regrading their property, putting in more tiles themselves within their property, ditches, other drainage, getting together and solving the problem with that area without involving and asking 80-some property owners to pay for a problem that isn't theirs. The gentleman that just spoke, I live right across from that field he's talking about, and I'm telling you, the water runs into that creek, overflows the creek to our neighbor's land, has washed out his driveway multiple times because that creek is overflowing, because the creek has nowhere to go once it goes under the road. So basically that's my concern. On Ford Road too, I do want to address that. When Sawmill Parkway went in, Ford Road saw a difference. Don't tell me, oh, the engineers planned for all that, there were all those drains and everything. I'm telling you, it affected Ford Road. You've got these huge mounding, yeah, they have some drains. Where did our drains in front, where do they get to drain? Because Sawmill's right there. That big roundabout is right there. And we were told very specifically, because we asked at the engineering meeting, look, we've got these roads that have been elevated now, and all this water runoff. We said, well, what did they do? How did they address the land around that when they built the roads? And we were told by the engineering department, all they're concerned about, the state, whoever built the road, and I'm sorry, I can't quite remember, they're only concerned about the water runoff on the road to keep it safe. Fine and dandy. So they're not really concerned about the property and any of that water running off the roads and flowing back right down Ford Road, and I'm sure Bean Oiler has the same place. And if you look on the map, they're only like, and I'm sure you can correct me, there are only like 2 places along Sawmill where all of these drains go under Sawmill. How do they get to the river? How do we know that things are draining properly under Sawmill to flow toward the river? So I sent a letter to the county engineer, and I don't know if it was forwarded to you.
Yes, it was.
Probably
We have it.
was.
Yeah.
So those were concerns that, of course, probably didn't come up today, but I do think there are alternatives to this expensive project that affect 80-some landowners, where we can take, you know, our group on Bean Oler, we can take our group on Ford Road, and engineering can work with us to alleviate some of the water problems without going through $400,000 worth of taxpayers' assessments. And that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield.
Well, it's not, it doesn't work like that, but
I yield to the senator from,
I will allow you to go back to the podium. We need to wrap this up, because this is really
So the
gone
biggest
long.
problem we have, wait till she says that. The biggest problem we have, the county has no permits.
Yeah.
So when you have no permits, they can't touch nothing. So the
Yes,
ditch
yes.
petition will give them permits to go through.
Mr. Drakla, you're addressing the board. You should be addressing the board, not other.
So the issue is,
We heard you.
We heard you.
Heard you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, others who want to speak in opposition? All right, then,
I'd make a motion that we close the hearing.
I'll second that motion.
okay, motion and a second to close the hearing, if you'd read that, please.
Resolution number 20-40, in the matter of closing the public hearing for consideration of the Watson Ford number 25 watershed improvement petition, was motioned by Mr. Merrill, seconded by Mrs. Lewis. Vote on motion 20-42. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Oh, you want to read it, okay.
I'll comment. You know, these petitions are always difficult, and there's a lot of emotion that we ultimately end up with. Our responsibility is following the revised code. Our responsibility is your water, if it sits on someone else's property, it is your responsibility. And there's no doubt in my mind that we have an issue in this area. There's no doubt in my mind that we have the ability to address it through the direction we get from the revised code. The 3 criteria that we're asked to follow: whether the board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare, and that it's reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvements will be less than the benefits. There's no question in my mind that it meets all 3 of those criteria, frankly. And part of the problem that occurs in these issues is when people start trying to correct a problem, They're just moving the problem to someone else's property. And that would be an issue if we don't address the issue long-term. Soil and Water does an outstanding job of making evaluations, and I have no question on my mind, as they go through this process, they will find the cheapest, most effective, efficient way to do the process. This is simply an estimate. And someone made a comment that it could be 20, 25% higher. It well could be lower, too. It'll be what the real costs are, and we won't know that until we get down to the second hearing. So I would, I'd ask that we move forward with the motion to
Grant the petition.
grant the petition.
Yes.
Resolution number 20-43, in the matter of granting the prayer petition and directing the Delaware County Engineer to proceed with the preparation of plans, reports, and schedules for the Watson Ford number 25 watershed drainage improvement petition.
So move.
Second?
Discussion? Further
I don't think
comments?
I've already commented on it.
Yeah, Commissioner Merrill's commented on it. I would agree. It is clearly necessary. I think it'll help the whole watershed. These things are big projects, and the engineer and Soil and Water do a great job of finding the best way and being very cost-conscious to address these. And these are the sort of things that one property owner or a few property owners just can't address by themselves. And that's why this petition process exists, is to address the problems for an area like this watershed. We are required by the code to go through this process, and we have to do it. So anyway, that'd be my comment, Commissioner.
Yes,
Commissioner
I
Lewis.
would agree. The evidence is overwhelming that there's a problem. It's not just one or two people, and this affects the whole area. And so I would definitely move forward.
Vote on motion 20-43. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Okay, that is it for the hearing. The hearing's done. We're going to,
Move to close.
Commissioner?
yeah, we want to do administrator reports.
Yeah.
Be back there.
Hearing
Oh,
is
Do you have any?
Yeah, the hearing's closed.
Administrator Farmer?
Administrator Fromer, any comments?
Any comments?
We're wrapping up the meeting.
The only thing I wanted to update the commissioners on is we just launched today a texting system through our 911 system, where when the sheriff's office institutes a level, one of the different levels of a snow emergency, you can actually, if you text Delco Snow, all one word, to 888-777, then you will be notified when the sheriff puts a certain level of snow emergency on.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm really glad. Yeah, I've already texted. I'm on the list.
I'm on the list, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I have to update you on.
Okay.
And I have nothing?
Commissioner Merrill?
I'll make it real quick. Commissioner Benton and I were at the Main Street luncheon yesterday. I'm really impressed with what Main Street's done and what Susie in her capacity has done with a very small budget.
Very small.
And I think we're doing good things. I attended a foster care event Monday night with Robert Anderson. Basically, most of the speakers Monday night were people that have experienced foster care issues in Franklin County, which is a little different than us. But I walked out there with the understanding and the feeling that these people... these people...
If you're going to continue conversations, please go out in the lobby. Thank you.
Thank you. But we heard from people that are going out of the program, 16, 17, 18, and how they look back 10 years earlier when the struggles they went through. We heard from foster parents and the
Oh, gee.
inadequacies of the state law and how it prevents them from really playing a significant role in the process, and some social workers as well. It was 2+ hours, very, very helpful. Again, problems in our county are much different than they are in Franklin County. That's where the 80% of the speakers were somewhere from Marion. But I do believe there is an opportunity, and I know Robert's going to be looking into it, helping those who are transitioning from 16, 17, 18 out of foster care. And if you can imagine what it was like when You were 16, we had parents to fall back on.
Yeah.
These people may not have somebody.
Right.
So as Robert looks into this and comes up with the recommendations, hopefully we'll give the proper consideration.
Well, and that has been identified as a real problem through our housing coalition, too.
And Governor
We just
DeWine's
talked
office is
about
the
it.
one that's doing this, so
Oh, good,
he's certainly
good,
behind this project
good.
and these meetings that are occurring around the state.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great.
Yeah, that transition from foster care to independent living, you know, at the age of 18 with mixed
Think how scary it
parental
is
guidance.
when you have
That's-
parents.
Oh,
That was scary
yeah,
to see when-
yeah.
Right.
Back to when I was 18, I wasn't very mature, and so,
That's all.
No, I
Okay.
think you probably would.
maybe not, who knows? Just a couple other things. The Main Street, I did want to comment on that. Susie Bibler does a great job. She almost doubled, I think she more than doubled the membership in this
So she
past
said.
year. Is getting lots of sponsorships. The events and activities are really increasing in both in popularity and attendance. And so, again, there's a lot of transitions going on in downtown Delaware, a lot of properties being renovated and new people coming in, so it's great to see downtown Delaware doing so well. I did get a flyer on the Lifelong Learning Institute, which is Ohio Wesleyan and a number of local folks that have started this. They had a very successful kickoff in the fall, and now they have a spring term of 2020. March 16th, April 25th. Just, you know, it's just learning for learning's sake. It's on most of the courses are on campus at Wesleyan. There's titles like Women of Hitchcock, a deep dive into DNA tools, immigration, healthy chess, understanding the U.S. Constitution, how does your garden grow? I mean, there's all sorts of really interesting courses
taught
taught.
last fall as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
And now
yeah.
they're repeating it.
Yeah, they're repeating it and growing it, and the attendance was phenomenal for a first term, and again, fascinating courses. A lot of Wesleyan professors are teaching, you know, just voluntarily, so, again, really neat that
No
that's going on.
cost, I take it?
There's a small cost.
Small
It's like
cost, okay.
$65 or $75 a course.
Oh, for
And
the-
course is
oh.
multiple weeks. depending on
Oh,
which
I
one.
see, okay, okay.
Not expensive,
Yeah.
but very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Strand
That's great.
participates, the Strand has, Tracy Payton does that. Finance Authority meeting was last night. I wanted to, I attended. Franz Geiger was sworn in as the new board member. Franz will be a great add. Bill Bishop is the new chair. We want to thank Dave Stage for his leadership as chair in the past. And the Finance Authority has just got so much going on. It was just fascinating to watch, you know, all the discussions and all the projects that they've got going on, and they're working on a strategic plan and so on. So it's really good. I want to thank everyone who's involved with that, in both now and in the past. It's just a huge plus for us going forward. And TID, I want to mention the TID, because the TID approved a project at Hyatt's in 23, that's going to be a joint sewer and engineer project to basically introduce sewer and redo the roads in that area and just allow that area to improve and develop. And it's just a huge step forward, and it's interesting that TID is going to do it. And it's a joint project, so it'll be quicker, faster, easier, or cheaper, and that project should end up summer or fall 2021. That whole corridor, that whole area will be vastly improved, so.
Gee, that's
Again,
great.
another
That's
example
great.
of the benefit that the TID brings to the county. So, and that's all I've got. So,
Up to you.
Oh, my gavel.
you want to do it?
Or do you want to do it?
Oh, you go and do it.
Okay, all
I
right.
know you're good at it.
Okay, quite good, yes.
All right, we are adjourned.